I have my Martha here with me again. She's still here. Hello. Miss Martha. Hi. Oh, my little baby. So in March, I only read 2 books. These 2. Only technically, it's now like the 3rd of April, and I haven't actually finished this one yet, but I'm counting it anyway. So yeah, in March I read 2 books, and this is what I thought of them. So the first book I read was Levitation for Beginners. This is set in the 70s, which I really liked. So set in the 70s with these girls, group of girls who were all friends. And it basically follows a little bit of their time at school and their sort of friendship, and how they navigate just life, really. They've got a group of girls, there's like sort of like a set of 3 and then another pair and set of 3. So there's like 2 friendship groups, or like 2 close-knit divides in the sort of group, which is really cool to like sort of see that written out and sort of how they navigate it. So they talk about, oh, we can't leave out this person because otherwise, you know, they'll feel bad and she'll be the only one left out. You've also got, which is like the main premise of the book, a newcomer. So a new girl comes to the school and her name is Sarah Jane. So she's a lot different compared to the other girls. She wears jeans, which they don't wear. And she's a bit more free and a bit more like, in a way, mysterious, because sort of she's moved into the vicarage, which is like a big house, which supposedly has like a pool at the back, and she's got this like sort of like aura of being special and different to like the town that they know. So the main character is definitely like in part she's admirable of this girl and like wants to know about her, but also another part is like, oh, I don't want her to like join the friend group, it's gonna make it like a different number, and like it's a new person, and she's a bit jealous of her, to be honest. Like she's jealous of like how Sarah Jane has this like entire life and that's not what she has. Yeah, so the main character Deborah does not like Sarah Jane. She doesn't want her to be a group member, but the other girls really like her, so she sort of has to put up with her in a way. And this is when you sort of see that like really like I think Deborah is sort of envious of Sarah Jane's life and like sort of like envious of how she is. Like she's very like she's good at like telling stories about like gossip and stuff. Like she's got these like stories of being older and being allowed to do things that they're not allowed to do. So she's very much got that sort of like older sister position in the group, which I think off-kilters everyone. And she also shares the story of her older sister, who is I think a fair few years older than her. There's at least a 20 age gap, and she got suspended from school for doing levitation classes. So that's where the title of the book comes from. So she was suspended for doing levitation classes, and this is what the girls try to do. So they try to levitate. They sit in this like abandoned part of the school, like a little treehouse kind of thing, and they try to levitate under like Sarah Jane's guidance. But the real story is in like sort of the friendship and how like Deborah sees Sarah Jane as like a potential like threat to the already established friend group. And then you have the relationship with Deborah and her mum. Her mum's very like to the point. She describes her as being not one of these like sort of lacy kind of mums that like make cakes and like sort of like make packed lunches for everyone, and her mum's very much like to the point, like not strict, but in a way not like curfew strict, but strict in her like sort of opinions and stuff. So Deborah doesn't have this sort of experience with her mum, and her relationship towards her is a bit different. And it also becomes different when she's got Sonny, who is sort of an older lad who becomes friends with her mum, and this is the lad that Sarah Jane also likes. So like Deborah's now stuck in the middle of like this kind of weird situation which she doesn't even fully understand either side. Like she doesn't get why Sarah Jane likes him, she doesn't get why he's sort of talking to her mum all the time. So yeah, it's a really unique perspective from like a 10-year-old like girl in the 70s, and it's sort of like, yeah, it's just really fresh to read, and it's a good sort of summer book. And you sort of lead up to the ending, which ends up with Deborah going to Sarah Jane's house. At the end of the book, you follow Deborah as she goes to the vicarage to sort of inspect and see if there really is a pool. And she goes to Sarah Jane's house, and she's actually invited in by Sarah Jane, and she gets to see like Sarah Jane's bedroom and the people around her, including her older sister's fiance, which she, like, the guy gives her really weird vibes, and her parents, who are the opposite of her mum. They're very like loving and like the lacy parents that she would imagine her other friends having. And then they go outside and they go to this sort of like shed bit that has all of the fiance's stuff in, like tools, etc, etc. They talk about magazines being there, and they also find a gun. So this is sort of like the pinnacle moment where they find this gun, and they end up getting in trouble for having the gun, but the events that follow this are not as clear cut as that. And yeah, so this was really nice to read. It was just interesting. Like, I loved the setup of like it being the 70s, and what drew me to it was the fact that on the blurb it said about it being in 1972. 10-year-old Deborah is living a 10-year-old life, butterscotch, angel delight, and Rayleigh shopper bikes. Like, the setting is just sounds very, very like, the way that it's described, almost caramelly, like very much like a very sweet, like kind of look back at times that have gone past. And then it goes on to talk about how like there's this new girl in the school and they're like all gossiping and stuff, and it's like very much like a girl talk kind of thing, which in a different sort of like historical perspective, which is really nice to sort of like experience as a reader. And second of all, the front cover is so pretty, like the sort of the peaches in the tins and things like that, and you can see like the broken glass, which sort of hints towards like the stuff that happens later on in the story. And even like the way that it's sort of designed like a lino print, and like the browns and the oranges is very much a very 70s kind of like vibe, and it was just really nice. Like, it's very well written and interesting, and it kept me reading. So this one was a really nice book to read. So this is the book that I'm about to finish, by Catherine Prasimpka. So this one is a more modern story. It's set in Dublin. Actually, this is the book that I saw a couple of years ago when I went to Dublin first, and I saw it in the Trinity shop, and I was considering buying it, but I didn't in the end. I just didn't pick it up. So I added it to my like to be read list, and just haven't got around to doing it until now, where I've just recently gone back to Dublin, and I went back to Trinity and it was still there, so I picked it up and I got it. So this book is sort of like, it's kind of strange. So it's like, it has the tone and the theme of a very like standard like character driven novel about like students in Dublin. However, I crack appears in the sort of sky, and it's like this big purple crack that appears after they've gone out for a house party. So you're reading and you're like, oh, reading about this house party, and it's all very like, oh yeah, like modern, and the experience is pulled from something quite close to you, and all of a sudden it's like there's a crack in the sky, like an actual break in the sky, and people talking about it, and it sort of follows that alongside this like sort of narrative of the main character and her like sort of love life and life struggles. Also follows the reactions of her and the characters and people online, like responses to this like random thing that's happened, and like at some points like people just forget about it and they don't talk about it, and other points that's all they talk about, all alongside her like being compared to her twin sister and liking a guy who's kind of like horrible, and another guy who's interested in her and she doesn't know what to do. Like it's very much like it puts things into a weird sort of perspective. It's like, oh well, this is all like the drama that's happening in this like very small like average kind of life, and then there's like other massive things happening where you've got like this possibly like scientific breakthrough / end of the world thing where there's like a crack in the actual sky and people are panicking, and then they're not panicking, and then they are panicking again, and then they're conspiring against it, and they're conspiring against why it's there and who caused it and what caused it, and then people are back to like talking about like the elections and back to talking about like going out for a drink. And yeah, it very much reflects how people like sort of react to disasters in life, I think, because at some point I feel like people get bored, don't they? Like something bad happens and it's everything that everyone could talk about. It's like, oh, this is horrible, like, oh my god, this is happening, and blah blah blah, like, and then everyone moves on, but it's still there. Like yeah, it very much like mirrors the sort of ways that people just sort of are very quick to move on from things that could potentially like be disastrous and could have like much bigger consequences. But you know, we've got a house party to go to get drunk, so, or you know, other sort of age related events and activities. But yeah, so far it's really good. I'm on page 140, so I'm kind of hoping to finish it now. I find that, so in this book you've got like, if you can see here, it sort of has little extracts of text talk in it, so like you see the text between some characters, which I don't find that it doesn't ruin the story. It's written in very much a way where you can clearly follow and see who's talking, but it's not over narrated with like names and stuff, and it contributes to the story as well. So I find that technique, because sometimes when texts are inserted I feel like it's just a bit like irrelevant, or like it's okay but then you've got like this weird like visual setup of how the texts are like copied down, and I feel like even now it's difficult to sort of mimic the online presence and the ways that we are online, how to replicate that in a book without it being very dated, becoming very dated, or looking really weird and reading weirdly. And I think that like sort of being able to replicate the online sort of world in a book and like have it as sort of like a way to narrate is quite like a skill to have, because I feel like when I'm writing I struggle to like replicate how people speak, and then you sort of end up writing how you speak, but then you're conscious that like in like 2 years that's going to sound really, really dated, so you have to sort of change in a way the ways that people speak to fit this like possibility of your writing existing way after your existence, and writing it like in a way that like it can transcend like and make sense. And I think like a comparison would be like, obviously, like you've got older texts that use words that we don't use now, and like if you read a text that use words that we don't use now, it can be like, it's very obvious the time that it came from. And text speak dates things like that, but obviously where it hasn't happened that long ago, it can risk becoming a bit cheesy and a bit like sort of like cringe. But this book does that, like it attempts and succeeds in replicating text speech in a way that isn't too like, if you could pretty much move this story up and down the like sort of timeline of the 2000s and it would make sense in a way, in that sort of aspect. So I think that's something that you will find that Sally Rooney, you'll notice, is very conscious of doing, is that she won't name sort of things. She approaches it in a very different way, so she doesn't name social media, and she'll just say, oh, I've been like social media and stuff, to not pinpoint a specific time in her stories, so that they don't become like a very like, oh, this was written in like 2019, this is written in blah blah blah. Like, yeah, there's something that she also does to sort of tackle this sort of online world that we have now and apply it to like a written story and a written experience. So yeah, these are the two books that I read. Most of my time this month has been either caring for Martha, who has left me at the moment. She had her tail amputation, she's had her cone off, so she's cone free, she's loving life. She's had her first potential adopter visit, so she's decompressing today. And yeah, so I've been doing that. I've been crocheting a lot, I've been learning how to knit. I finished my little baby bonnet, which is it was a success. I definitely dropped a lot of stitches, but you know, I tried. So a lot of my time has been doing that, and I find that like balancing all my interests has been quite difficult. So like this month, the reading has just taken a toll, because I started a new job where I went back to somewhere, like a shopping centre I used to work in, and it means that I start work later but then work later in the day, and my days off aren't at the weekends, they're like sporadic. So like adjusting to that meant that I wasn't like very like in a reading kind of mood. My breaks are like half an hour, so like I'm now getting back into like reading on my breaks and my lunch breaks, but then sometimes I'll spend it with my fiance, so because he also works in the same place, so like if I'm with him I don't read. And like I've been crocheting a lot, learning how to crochet, and I'm not at the point where I can read and crochet at the same time, or read and knit at the same time, to be honest. So I can't do both of those at the same time. So like where I have a craft market soon, I have to sort of prioritise the crafting so I have things to sell. And then like also like I like to game, so I like to play. I'm trying to like get back into my Baldur's Gate route and actually finish it. And we started playing Split Fiction, which is so good. So yeah, reading has just taken a bit of a backseat this month, but I'm not too mad about it. I feel like there's sort of like the desire to read loads, and I see like loads of people online who are able to read like 5 books a month, and you sort of get caught up in the chase. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. I'm happy that I still read some books this month, and I'm still like interested in reading. It's just that I have like other things to do. I've got my cat on there. But yeah, that's what I read this month. I'm I'm curious to know what everyone else. I've just made the camera really shake. Yeah, so that's what I read this month and what I did this month. Yeah, drop a like and subscribe for more stuff. I'm hoping that maybe this month I can edit my travel vlogs and get them up, because those would be quite cool to see. It would be nice to sort of see all the stuff that I experienced on like a couple of months after. These are the books that if you're interested in finding them yourselves. And as always, just, you know, connect. Instagram, TikTok, on here. Let me know what you read. Let me know if you've read these books, and let's have a chat. Yeah, I'm gonna go finish this book and annoy the cat.